Today let us take up the oral evidence which is as per the section 59 and 60 of the Indian Evidence Act 1872. So the provision has been laid down in two sections about the oral evidence. So the under section 59, the proof of facts by oral evidence. So the proof of oral evidence states that all facts except the documentary evidence or electronic records may be proved by oral evidence. So all facts can be proved by oral evidence except the documentary evidence and electronic records. That is the section 69. And then it must be, and the oral evidence must be direct. We can tell the oral evidence with an illustration. A gave rupees 10,000 to B. Here it can be proved by the witness who were present when the money was given or by the check. So A gave rupees 10,000 to B. This can be proved by the persons who were present at the time of transaction of money, that is given by A to B, or this can also be proved by the check given. Documents is when the document is not available for proof, as mentioned in section 65 of Indian Evidence Act, the secondary evidence of it can be proved as per the section 65. Some of the signs also can be taken as oral evidence. Say for example in Abdullah, Queen Empress versus Abdullah, 1885, 7 ALL 385 within bracket FB. In this the lady, the wife, the victim could not speak any words because the slit, the throat of her, the throat has been slit by her husband and she could not say the words. So the sign shown by her was taken as the evidence. So even the sign is taken as evidence. And section 60, that is oral evidence, must be direct. That is some of the oral evidence refers to some of the existence of material thing other than a document. Court may material things can also be taken. Usually there were in oral evidence when the oral evidence refers to existence of material things also. That material things has to be provided, has to be produced in the court. That is the direct evidence. Direct evidence of a person, sometimes the direct evidence of a person has what he told or what he attributed, that is what he himself has seen something, heard something, or perceived something. Suppose if the person himself heard something, then it is the oral evidence. Sometimes if he talked the things, so seen something, that is seen something, for instance A stabbing B, this is also taken as direct evidence. So the oral evidence should be direct. And heard something, if it could be heard, for example a gunshot, and perceived something by any other sense. Perception means the touching, the by the sensory nerve, by the smell, or by tactile sensation. If at all, if it is perceived by senses, then it is also taken as oral evidence, that is direct evidence. So section 60 says oral evidence must be direct, and the direct evidence of a person who himself has seen, heard or perceived. So these three things are very very important in the section 60, that is oral evidence must be direct. So for example, a person the instance of A stabbing B, that was seen by a person, means that is direct evidence. Like that a gunshot was heard, then that is also a oral evidence. And he perceived a smell or something, tactility by touching of his body, then these are all called oral evidence. That is direct evidence. And the rational of usually the hearsay rule is not applicable in or taken as evidence, but the rationale of hearsay rule is, if A tells B about what he has seen, heard, then what the thing, important thing is, A tells to B that he heard or he has seen the incident, a crime incident or something like that, and he perceived through his senses. That is, A perceive and he expresses the thing to B. So here A is the principal or A is the original the first hand information by A, and the second hand information by B. So A is called the original witness and B is called derivative witness. So because A himself seen the incident, so he could attribute the reasons, he could attribute the fact in the court, and he has heard the shot or he has perceived the things. So that is called as the original or the first hand information. Since he told the incident to B, it is called second hand information. So this is A is called original. What the A perceived, heard, what the A experienced and could tell in the court, that is called original witness. And if it was told by A to B, then it is called derivative witness. And the important thing between original and derivative is, usually the derivative witness will be, or proof of facts will be always be distorted. So it will not be as like A, and when it passes through so many people, it may distorted. That is the important thing. So then the B is not reliable, because since he heard from B, it is not reliable. And A can be cross examined, because in the witness box what he is swearing, that he has seen it, but B cannot say in the swearing in the witness box that he heard the things from B. So it is not the original one. And then whenever A speaks falsehood, that is considered as perjury. So but when B says some falsehood, it cannot be taken as perjury, because he has taken the all the witnesses or the facts from A, so it cannot be taken as perjury. And then A can be, another thing, A can be cross examined, whereas B cannot be cross examined. So this is the thing between the rationale of hearsay rule. When hearsay evidence is produced in the court, the primary or the original one or the first hand information can be taken, the second hand information is not original and it is called derivative witness or derivative fact. So it might, there is every possibility for the distortion of the original one, and A can be, if at all, if it is from the original person, it can be cross examined. And then the opinion of experts, another thing, the opinion of experts expressed by experts could not be suppose if the opinion of the original could not be obtained, the treatises, that is the abstract facts derived by the experts, that can be taken as the opinion. So opinion means the experts say about the crime incident, they actually witness the crime incident and they conclude certain things, and that is taken as opinion, and the opinion is taken as evidence. But in the when that opinion could not be obtained, suppose if the treatise is available, then the treatise is taken by the court. Then exception to hearsay rule. So usually hearsay rule is not taken as evidence, but hearsay rules also can be taken as evidence. So that is the exception. So what are the exception to hearsay evidence? The admissions, that is admitting of the fact by a person, is known as admissions, and this cannot be, the admissions cannot be rebutted. It is self-harming. Usually the admissions are always self-harming. Even then, if the person admits, that can be taken as evidence. Then confessions, the confessions by the party who did the crime, that is, I did the crime, I did the murder, I shot the, I raped B, like that a person confesses himself, then if it is through the confession through hearsay evidence, it can be taken as evidence. And the dying declaration, whenever the dying declaration is made, because the person who is in dying status, he is putting his one leg on the graveyard, so there may not be he may not lie, only the truth will come out from his mouth. So that dying declaration, any hearsay evidence from the dying declaration, so if at all, if it is heard by somebody, the declaration by dying declaration by somebody who heard the dying person's statement, then it is taken as hearsay evidence. So the evidence in previous judgment proceedings, suppose some of the previous judgment proceedings will also be the hearsay evidence. And then some of the entries in public records. So here in public records, for say death and birth register, or so many registers available with the government, and then in that the entries were made by the public servant. So the servant need not give any evidence directly. So the entries in the public records will say as hearsay evidence. So these are all the exceptions to hearsay rule. Say for example, admissions, and confessions, dying declarations, and then entries, evidence in previous judicial proceedings, and entries in public records. These are all exception to hearsay rule. And then another thing, a maxim, which is the maxim governing the oral evidence, that is false in that is falsus in omnibus, falsus in falsus in omnibus, that is the when the beginning, when the false is told, false is suspected in the beginning, the entire thing will be under the suspicion, or beginning is started with some false witnesses, then the entire thing will be under the impression that the entire thing is under false. So that is falses in that is in the beginning, falses in omnibus, that is up to the end it will not be considered as a true witness, or it is the statement of fact, if any, it may not be considered as true. So from the beginning itself the court should believe that it is true, that is the false in and false in omnibus. This is the maxim or proverb or adage in oral evidence. And then the importance of witness and oral evidence. What is the relationship, what is the importance of oral evidence? Usually the witness is considered as the ear and eye of the court. So the court completely entirely depends upon the witness who is giving the facts or who is giving the statement. So the court believes on it. Based upon the witness, based upon the statement, based upon the evidence, the judgment is derived. So witness is an amicus curiae, that is witness is the friend of court. Usually the another Latin term for the witness is an amicus curiae, that means the witness is the friend of court. So the oral evidence should be corroborated with the incident, and it should be unified manner. There should not be difference of things should not be there, and these are all the things. So basing on the evidence, the judgment is derived. So this oral evidence keeps a vital role in delivering the judgment. So with this we conclude the oral evidence.